Hey, this is Angela, and you're listening to the Study for the Bar in Your Car podcast. I am back. So you probably can't tell, but I've been gone for a whole week. I had uploaded about 10 days worth of episodes, or maybe 7 days worth of episodes, and I went away. So I went to Puerto Rico, and the Thousand Lawyer Project had a bar exam retreat in Puerto Rico, and it was fantastic. We stayed at this amazing house that was like right on the beach. There's a swimming pool. There are other students there, and it was good. It was like designed to be a break after your semester from law school's over, where you can go and focus and relax. So you can sort of be on vacation, but not feel guilty that, ooh, I'm not studying for the bar exam. So I don't know what else to say. Is that I really, really enjoyed it. And then after Puerto Rico, I went over to the Dominican Republic. So around Christmas time, I bought this pass on Frontier Airlines where you pay $300 for the pass. And then between April this year and April next year, May this year and May next year, I get to fly anywhere that Frontier Airlines flies for a penny. So, I mean, in reality, it's more than a penny because the tax on some of these flights can be $100 or more. And then if you want to bring bags, it's like another $40. But still, I mean, you would end up paying that amount anyhow if you were flying someplace and paying the regular fare. Frontier Airlines isn't the best airline, but for short flights, it's like not bad. And somehow I've managed to accrue 19,000 miles on Frontier. I don't know how, because I don't feel like I fly them that much, but apparently I do. The numbers say otherwise. So yeah, it was a fun time down there. If you haven't checked it out or haven't checked them out, check out Joel and Zazie with the Thousand Lawyer Project and their URL. I think it's 1000lawyers.com. I'll pull it up for the end of this podcast. They do great work, and I really believe in their project, their system. I am also I was in another class. So Catherine Robb, she does a class specifically for essay writing. And I like her style. She's sort of this no-nonsense woman. She's been grading for over 30 years. I have pulled out of her class, not because of her. She's great. She's fabulous. But I've pulled out because I am no longer registered for the PLOW bar exam. In fact, I guess I was never registered for the PLOW bar exam. And I will tell that story on another podcast episode. But if you remember going back a few episodes, I'd mentioned, PLOW had contacted me and they said they have this new bar committee, and I didn't think it was good news. But then I looked at the rules. I'm like, okay, it's not bad. I still qualify. Well, I did not. And I will get into that in another episode. So this is episode 9 of Contract Law. And we just did a previous episode on performance, breach, and discharge. Now, this is a part 2 of performance, breach, and discharge, but we're going to specifically go over other performance matters, including like curing, so how to cure the contract, identification, notice, and risk of loss. And we're going to cover topics such as impossibility, impracticability, frustration of purpose, discharge of duties, including accord and satisfaction, a substituted contract, novation, rescission, and release. So this is all under the umbrella of performance and discharge. So this is part 2. Let's get at it with our AI hosts, Claude and Maud.
Welcome to this deep dive, The Learner. And a really big thank you to Angela for sharing her fantastic law school notes. Think of this as your personal bar prep session on the go.
Seriously, Angela, these notes are gold. We're going to use them today to really dig into a core area for the bar. contract performance, breach, and discharge.
Exactly. We're looking at what happens after the deal is made, when the promises kick in, and sometimes, well, things don't go quite as planned. We'll pull the key ideas right from Angela's notes, focusing on how duties get fulfilled and how they end.
Right. So Angela starts with some what she calls other performance matters. These are really important, especially under the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code, which covers sales of goods. First up is cure.
Cure, like fixing a mistake.
That's basically it. Imagine a seller delivers something, but it's not quite right. Lawyers call it non-conforming. If the buyer rejects it, Angela's notes explain the seller might actually get a chance to fix it.
Ah, like a second chance. A mulligan.
Good way to put it. If they can get the right goods delivered within the original contract time, they've cured the problem. And here's a key point from Angela for your bar prep. Sometimes, even if the deadline's passed, the seller might still get a shot at cure.
Oh. How does that work?
Well, if the seller had, reasonable grounds to think the buyer would accept the first delivery, even though it was technically wrong, maybe based on past dealings or industry standards.
Okay, so it encourages fixing things instead of just yelling breach all the time. Angela's notes had examples, right? Like widgets missing wrenches or the wrong oil grade.
Exactly. Things where a quick swap or addition makes it right. In those cases, cure is likely allowed.
Yeah.
Next, Angela flags identification.
Identification of the goods.
Yeah. Her notes don't go super deep here, but it's fundamental for sales contracts. It's basically the moment specific goods are designated for this particular contract, like pointing to a pile and saying, okay, those are the widgets for your order.
Gotcha. So we know exactly which items we're talking about. Why is that step so important?
Well, it's often a prerequisite for other rules to kick in, like who bears the risk if those specific goods get damaged or lost. You need to know which goods are at stake.
Right. Makes sense. Then Angela mentions notice. It seems pretty straightforward telling the other person what's up.
It is, but it's crucial. Angela stresses that for certain actions, like rejecting non-conforming goods, the buyer has to tell the seller. And not just I reject, but why.
So the seller knows the problem and maybe has that chance to cure we just talked about.
Precisely. It avoids confusion, keeps communication lines open. You can't just, leave them guessing.
Okay. And that leads nicely into another big one Angela covers. Risk of loss. This feels like prime bar exam territory.
Oh, absolutely. Angela's notes lay this out really well. Under the UCC, for goods, we need to know who's responsible if they get damaged or destroyed before the buyer has them. The default rule is what's called a shipment contract.
Shipment contract, meaning the seller just has to ship it.
Basically, yes. Their main job is to get the goods to a carrier. Think FedEx, UPS, a trucking company. Once the carrier has the goods, boom, the risk of loss usually shifts to the buyer.
Wait, so even if it's addressed to me, if it gets damaged on the truck, it might be my problem. Angela's notes said a ship to address doesn't automatically change that, right?
Correct. That's a key point she makes. A simple ship to address doesn't by itself create a destination contract. The idea is, once it's shipped, the buyer often has more control or ability to insure it.
Okay, so what is a destination contract then?
That's where the contract specifically requires the seller to get the goods to a particular place. Not just ship them, but deliver them at the destination. In that case, Angela points out, the risk doesn't pass until the goods are actually tendered there.
So the seller's on the hook for longer in a destination contract.
Exactly. And Angela also covers situations without carriers, non-carrier cases. If the seller's a merchant, someone who deals in these goods regularly, risk doesn't pass until the buyer physically gets the goods.
And if the seller isn't a merchant, like I'm selling my old bike.
Then risk passes on tender delivery, basically, when the seller makes the bike available for the buyer to pick up. Angela has a great example in her notes. Gears lost in a hurricane after being handed to the carrier in a shipment contract. Buyer bears the loss there.
Ouch. Okay, that's a really clear breakdown. Super important distinctions. What's next in Angela's outline? Looks like impossibility, impracticability, and frustration of purpose.
Right. These are doctrines that can excuse performance if some unexpected event throws a massive wrench in the works. Impossibility is the most extreme performance, becomes literally physically impossible.
Like the thing being sold is destroyed. Angela's example was a specific car destroyed by fire before the sale.
Exactly that. If that specific car is gone, the seller can't perform. It's impossible. And Angela notes partial impossibility might just discharge part of the duty.
Okay. What about impracticability? Sounds
Yeah.
less absolute.
It is. Performance isn't technically impossible, but it's become incredibly and unreasonably difficult or expensive because of some unforeseen event, something both parties just assumed wouldn't happen.
So, like, not just a little price hike, but something major. Angela mentioned a drought devastating a grape crop for a winery.
Perfect example from her notes. Making the wine becomes astronomically expensive, way beyond what anyone anticipated. That might be impracticability. But yeah, Angela warns that just more expense or difficulty usually isn't enough. It has to be extreme.
Got it. And the last one here is frustration of purpose. How's that different?
Here, performance is still possible, maybe even easy, but the core reason, the whole point of the contract for both parties, has been wiped out by an unexpected event.
Like the classic example, renting a room just to watch a coronation parade and then the parade gets canceled. Angela didn't have one here, but that fits right.
That's the textbook example, yeah. You could still rent the room, the owner can still provide it, but the reason it was valuable is gone. Angela's notes emphasize the event can't be the fault of the party claiming frustration, and its non-occurrence had to be a basic assumption.
Okay, so quick recap for studying. Impossibility can't be done. Impracticability can be done, but it's now insanely hard costly due to unforeseen stuff. Frustration can be done, but why bother? The whole point is gone.
You nailed it. That's a great way to keep them straight.
All right, now Angela shifts gears to discharge of duties. Basically, all the ways a contract can officially end.
Yep, the end of the road for the obligations.
Yeah.
The simplest, Angela notes, is discharge by performance. Both sides do exactly what they promised. Done deal.
Makes sense. If I pay and you deliver, we're good.
Right. And even just offering to perform tender of performance can sometimes discharge your duty if the other side wrongly refuses it.
Okay. What else? Angela mentions discharge by occurrence of conditions subsequent. That sounds technical.
It is a bit. It means a duty that currently exists can be terminated if some specific event happens later. Think of an insurance contract. The duty to pay your claim might end if you don't file the paperwork within 60 days. Filing on time is the condition. Failing to do so triggers the discharge.
Okay. An event that kills the obligation later on. What about discharge by illegality?
Pretty straightforward. If the contract was legal when formed, but a new law makes performance illegal afterwards, the duties are discharged. Can't be forced to break the law.
Right. Now, discharge by rescission, undoing the contract.
Exactly. Angela outlines mutual rescission. Both parties agree to just call it off. This works if there are still things left to do on both sides, executory duties. The consideration is each party giving up their right to the other's performance.
So if we both agree to scrap it before anyone's fully performed, we can. What about one side wanting out unilateral rescission?
Angela mentions that's usually only possible if there's a valid reason, like fraud, duress, mistake stuff she likely covers elsewhere as grounds to avoid a contract altogether. You generally can't just unilaterally decide, I'm out.
Okay. Next up. Discharge by accord and satisfaction. This sounds like settling up.
It is. Angela explains the accord is a new agreement. The person owed something, the obligee, agrees to accept a different performance than what was originally due.
Like, I owe you $1,000, but we agree I'll detail your car instead. That agreement is the accord.
Perfect. And the satisfaction, according to Angela's notes, is the actual performance of that new agreement, you detailing the car. Once the satisfaction happens, the original $1,000 debt is discharged.
Got it. Does the new performance have to be equal in value?
Not necessarily. Angela points out that consideration for the accord is needed, but it can be different, maybe lesser value if it's a different type of performance or if it's paid early or paid to someone else. Or, crucially, if there was a genuine dispute about the original debt amount.
The bona fide dispute. And Angela mentioned those payment in full checks, too.
Yes. If there's a real dispute over how much is owed, and the debtor sends a check clearly marked payment in full for a lesser amount, the creditor cashing that check can operate as an accord and satisfaction. Big practical point there.
Definitely. What if someone breaches the accord? Like, I agree to detail the car instead of paying, but then I don't show up.
Good question. Angela covers this. If the debtor breaches the accord, the creditor generally has a choice. Sue on the original debt, $1,000, or sue for breach of the new agreement, the accord to detail the car.
Okay, options. What if the creditor breaches the accord? Like, they agree to the car detailing, I'm ready to do it, but they sue me for the $1,000 anyway.
Then, Angela explains, the debtor can raise the accord agreement as a defense or potentially even sue the creditor for breaching the accord.
Interesting how that works. Okay, moving on. Discharge by substituted contract. How's that different from accord and satisfaction?
Angela clarifies, That a substituted contract isn't just agreeing to accept a different performance for the old obligation. It's creating a whole new contract that immediately replaces and discharges the original one. The old contract is just gone.
So immediate replacement, not just a deal to settle the old one later.
Exactly. It discharges the original duties right away.
Okay. And discharge by novation sounds similar again.
It's a specific type of substituted contract, as Angela lays out. The key feature of novation is substituting a new party for one of the original parties. All three, the original parties and the new party, have to agree. The party who is replaced is then totally released from their obligations.
Right. Angela's example was perfect. A Hollywood actor leaves a show, a new stage actor comes in, and everyone agrees the production company, the old actor, the new actor, the old actor is discharged via novation.
Precisely. Then there's discharge by release. Angela mentions this elsewhere too, but here it's about a written agreement where one party just gives up their rights against the other. It formally discharges the other party's duty.
Like a formal, I won't sue you?
Essentially, yes, if supported by consideration or other formal requirements. And finally, Angela covers discharge by lapse, when things just expire. Sort of. Angela explains it applies mainly when duties are concurrent conditions, meaning both sides are supposed to perform at the same time, like handing over goods while payment is made. If the day comes and neither party performs or offers to perform, then after a reasonable time passes, the duties might just lapse, especially if the contract didn't say time is of the essence.
So if we were supposed to swap widgets for cash on Tuesday, and Tuesday comes and goes and neither of us does anything, eventually the deal might just dissolve.
Exactly. If time wasn't critical, the obligations can just fade away after a while. But if the contract did say time is of the essence, that lapse could happen much faster, potentially right away, if performance doesn't occur on the specified day.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow, that's a lot of ways for a contract to end. And throughout this section, Angela weaves in bar study tips, right?
She does. A big one is constantly asking, is this common law or UCC Article 2? The rules, as we've seen, can be really different, especially for things like cure and risk of loss in sales of goods. You have to know which rules apply.
And focusing on the specific legal terms, the objective standards. No winging it.
Definitely not. Contract law uses precise language. And Angela suggests, and I agree, thinking about real-world examples helps a ton, like applying risk of loss to your own online purchases. It makes the concept stick.
Absolutely. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We have covered a ton of ground thanks to Angela's amazing notes, performance issues, impossibility, all those ways contracts can be discharged. It's like a high-speed contracts review.
It really shows how much happens after the contract is signed. Formation is just the beginning. Understanding performance and discharge is critical.
And here's what's really key, I think. Getting these concepts isn't just about flashcards. It's about seeing contracts as living things, understanding their whole life cycle.
Right. It pushes you to think more critically about agreements, anticipating potential problems, and how they might be resolved, or how duties might end.
So for you, the learner, especially if you're driving around studying for the bar right now, we hope this deep dive using Angela's notes has really clarified these core principles. Maybe a bit of a shortcut to feeling well-informed.
We hope it's provided some clarity and maybe sparked a few aha moments on these sometimes tricky topics.
Okay, final provocative thought to leave you with, building on Angela's material. Imagine a scenario. Performance seems impossible. Maybe a unique factory burns down. But what if the contract specifically said something like, seller assumes all risk of factory destruction? How might a court balance that specific contract language against the general doctrine of impossibility?
Oh, good one. That really gets into the tension between freedom of contract and these background legal doctrines. Definitely something to mull over.
Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it helps with your studies. Keep digging, keep learning.
Hey, I'm back. Thank you, Claude and Maud, for that overview of part 2 of contract performance, breach, etc. Anyhow, so I said I would get back to you with that URL for the 1000 Lawyer Project, and it is the THE1000lawyerproject.com. So it's the THE1000lawyerproject.com. Anyhow, as I said before, on other podcast episodes, Number one, I am not an attorney, so none of this is legal advice. Two, AI isn't always correct, but I do review this and I try to correct it to the best of my knowledge. But keep in mind, I am a law student just like you. Three, be safe on the roads. So if any of this is going to distract you from safe driving, then I would pull over or listen to it at a time when you are not in your car. Anyhow, you've been listening to the Study for the Bar in Your Car podcast. I'm your real live host, Angela. If you need to reach me regarding this podcast, you can email me at podcast@studyforthebarinyourcar.com. I also work as an independent law clerk with attorneys across the USA. If you are an attorney or you work with an attorney who needs help with research, motions, legal writing, etc., you can find me on my website, legalwriterandlawclerk.com. You can email me there at hello@legalwriterandlawclerk.com. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode, which is about contract remedies.